Well, welcome. Welcome in. Happy Thursday. I want to congratulate all of you that did your performances last week another time. I hope that you had a lot of fun. I left class being just so excited and so proud of everybody and all of the hard work that you've done and the practice. And it was just a wonderful class. So congratulations one more time. We've got some fun things planned today. So we're going to do a little bit of like warm up and review. We're going to learn a new rhythm today. We're going to talk about key signatures. We're going to do some sharing of our pieces, and we're going to spend some time today actually going over two different kinds of pieces with you and going over finger numbers and where to put your hands and the notes and counting and everything, just so that everybody feels a little bit more confident with that, hopefully by the end of today's class. So before we jump in and do a review, does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to talk about here at the beginning of class? No? Okay, well, in that case, we're going to get started then. So we're just going to review a couple of our major 5-finger patterns. We can get our blood flowing, our fingers working, our brains back into the music mood. So we've learned our major 5-finger scales. We've gone over a couple of them in class. So let's start with a really easy one. We're going to start with C major. So if you're near your piano, you can go ahead and play along with me. If not, you can say the notes out loud with us and play on your table or play on your legs or something like that. So our C major 5-finger pattern is built by using the notes C, D, E, F, and G. And I'm going to spotlight my piano so that you can see my hands on my piano. I'll do it with my right hand, and I'm going to use finger numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to go up and down 3 times. I'll just give you a chance to kind of go along with me. We're going to go kind of slow, and I want you all to say these notes out loud with me. And if this is something that you're really comfortable with, you can go ahead and try it with both hands. So go ahead and put your left hand on C, D, E, F, and G as well. All right, 1, 2, ready, go. C, D, E, F, G, and back down, F, E, C, D, E, F, G, F, E, and one more time, C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C. All right, now to review, when we have our major 5-finger pattern, we can take the bottom note, the root, the middle note, the third, and the top note, which is the 5th. And we can play all 3 of those notes together, and that is a chord, a blocked chord. I can also play those notes separately, and that is an arpeggio or a broken chord. So we're going to try this one more time, and now we're going to play C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C, E, G, E, C, blocked chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up and down the scale. We're going to play our arpeggio up and down, and then we're going to end with a blocked chord. And we'll go nice and slow. 1, 2, ready, go. C, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C, E, G, E, C, and then our blocked chord. Nice. My camera's a little bit delayed on my end. Okay, let's build another one. So we're going to review actually how to build these major 5-finger patterns. Let's go up to E flat. So E is here, and E flat is the black key right to the left of that. And just to review, we need our tonic note, or that home note, and then we need a whole step, half step, whole step. So if you want to unmute, who can tell me what a whole step up from E flat is?
F.
Yes. So we go E flat to F, and then who can tell me what a whole step up from F is?
G.
Awesome, thank you. And then a half step up from G?
G sharp.
Yes, Awesome. And we're going to call it A flat. And then a whole step up from A flat.
B flat.
Yes, good. So our E flat 5-finger pattern is E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat. And it feels a little awkward because you've got all sorts of fingers on the black keys, but that's okay. So we're going to go up and down this scale, and then we're going to play the bottom, middle, top, and back down. And then we're going to play that blocked chord, just like we did for C major. So let's try that. 1, 2, ready, go. E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, A flat, G, E, F, E flat, G, B flat, G, E flat, and then blocked. Okay, cool. So has anyone been able to do and build some of these 5-finger patterns on their own? Raise your hand if you have been practicing that. Okay, awesome. Have you done any really wild keys, like tried starting on C sharp or anything like that? Yeah, a couple people. Okay, good. Does anybody remember from our major 5-finger pattern, how do we get minor? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Ashley. I think you're unmuted.
Okay, move your left finger 1 or a half step to the left.
Yeah, so we're gonna take that middle finger, the third finger, and we go down a half step, or to the left a half step. So we were just in E flat major. So I'm gonna spotlight this for you. We were in E flat major, which is E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat. And if I want to make it minor, I'm going to take this third finger, this middle note, and I'm going to go down a half step, which in this case makes it G flat instead of G natural. And that changes this major 5-finger pattern and major chord to minor. So now it has a completely different sound than it did when it was major. So let's play that together. So we're going to put our thumb on E flat in our right hand, and then F, and then G flat, A flat, B flat. We'll go nice and slow. 1, 2, ready, go. E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, A flat, G flat, F, E flat, G flat, B flat, G flat, E flat, and then the chord. Cool. So we're going to keep reviewing this. We will definitely go over more of these. It's a complicated thing to do. And this is something that when I teach this to my college classes, we spend like almost an entire quarter continuing to review it because there's so many keys and there's so many different options. So if you're not totally understanding all of them, that's okay. If you can do the C major one, that's great. If you can do the C major one plus a couple other ones, that's also great. And if you've gone beyond that, awesome. Does anybody have questions about that right now? We have a couple minutes if anybody wants to go over another one or ask any questions.
I was kind of wondering where you play the chords. Like I was playing around with the Amazing Grace that was in the notes, I think from the presentation on week 3. Do you just play wherever you want? Like, I don't know.
That's a great question. Yeah, and the answer is kind of yes. So when you're reading from a lead sheet, you can do what you think sounds the best. You have a little bit of freedom. You know, when we're reading from the staff, we've talked about how, you know, middle C is one specific C on the piano. But when you have a chord symbol, you do have a little bit of freedom to decide where you want that chord to be and what range you want to play it in. And so generally, after some experimenting, you'll find that, you know, sometimes the hands will sound a little better if they're closer together. But you can use your own discretion and make your own choice there because it's ultimately up to you. Cool. Any other questions?
I'll ask another one, a follow-up.
Sure.
Do you hold it for the count of whatever note is underneath the letter at the top? or?
Ooh, that's another great question. So the chord will last for like until there is a change in the chord. So the chord symbol, like that chord will last for whether it's a whole measure or 2 measures. So you have, again, options. You can play it once where it's written. You can play it on every single beat. You can play it on the first and the third beat. You can hold it. So you get to be a little free with the rhythm as well. Still needs to be in time, but you can decide if you want to just play the chord once and then wait until you see the next chord, or if you want to add some filler in there or even play some arpeggios or things like that to fill that space. Yeah, great question. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and go on then. So today we're going to learn a new rhythm or a new note, I should say. And this is exciting. We're getting into some really fast notes. So these notes that you see up here on your screen, these are 16th notes. And I'm just going to put little stamps here. We're going to use hearts. This is a single 16th note. And you can see that it's a little note head. I know it's kind of small on the screen with a stem, and it has 2 flags. So a couple of weeks ago, we learned about an 8th note that was a little note head and a stem and a single flag like that. An 8th note gets a half of a beat. The 16th note, the difference in look is that it has 2 flags, and the difference in value is that it gets a 1/4 of a beat. So when we have a 16th note, we won't usually see it by itself as a single note because it has to be paired with something else that takes up the rest of the beat. So we can see a pair of 16th notes, which because each of them gets a 1/4 of a beat together, this would get a 1/2 of a beat. Or we also see 4 16th notes grouped together. And we see this pretty often because 4 of them equal 1 beat. Now, we talked about with 8th notes, how when we count, we want to account for the 1/2 of the beat. So we can change our counting and we can count 1 and 2 and 3 and. And when we count that way, we're subdividing the beat. We're taking the beat and we're saying, this is 1, this is 1/2 of 1, this is 2, this is 1/2 of 2. And we do the same thing with 16th notes. And when we count 16th notes, we just further subdivide the beat. So we've got 1, E, and A. And you'll notice that 1 and are still there because that's still my beat 1 and that's still the 1/2 of the beat. But now we've just also added the 1/4 of the beat and the 3/4 of the beat. So it's 1, E, and A. And I'll draw that a little bigger. It's 1 letter E. I just do a plus sign for and then a letter A for A. So the 1 and the and are still there, just like when we learned with the 8th notes. But now we've added the E and the A to account for the 4ths. So let's just say that a couple of times together because it's a mouthful. So let's say it like 4 or 5 times in a row. We can go 1 E and 1 E and 1 E and 1 E and 1 E and. And like I said, what we're doing when we're counting 1 E and is we're basically saying 1, a 4th, 1/2, 3/4. And then we go on to the next beat. 2, E and 2, a 4th, a 1/2, 3/4. So let's look at this example, this number 1 example that's in 2/4 time. And it's pretty small, but underneath the notes they've written in 1 E and 2 E and And we are still counting 2 E and even though we have 8th notes here, because we want to keep our beats consistent. And so this first measure would sound like this: 1 E and 2 E and. I'm going to do that one more time. 1 E and 2 E and. So let's do that first measure by ourselves all together a couple times. But we're just going to repeat it 3 times in a row. Okay, so we can get the chance to feel it and count it. So I'll count a measure and then we'll do it 3 times together. So 1 E and 2 E, ready, go. 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and one more time. 1 E and 2 E and. Good. So now that is all that we need to count the rest of this example. So in our next measure, we've got 2 eighth notes. So we're going to count 1 and, but we'll keep the counting the same. 1 E and. Quarter note gets all fourths of the beat. 2 E and. So let's jump in. I'm going to clap with you. Let's see if we can do this whole example. We've got a couple of measures that are the same, and I just want to point them out to you. So measure 1 is the same as this one, is the same as this one, and is the same as that one. And in between those measures, we have measures that don't have any 16th notes. So when we get to measure 2, things are going to move a little slower because there's not 16th notes. This measure is going to go a little slower because there's not 16th notes. This measure is going to feel a little slower because there aren't 16th notes. Okay, so let's give it our very best shot. 1 E and 2 E, ready, go. 1 E and 2 E and 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 1 E and 2 E and. Nice, very, very good. I forgot to put a little star right there because that one's also longer. Okay, so this example is a great one to practice. I am a huge fan of writing in my music, especially when it comes to rhythm, because I have always struggled with rhythm. So I like to write in 1 E and underneath every single note. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it this small, but it would be 2 E and then and. And writing in the rhythm, especially when we're learning new rhythms, and especially when we are trying to, work out how these rhythms sound and feel, it can be very, very helpful because it gives you another visual cue of, how things line up and how to practice. So in your own practice, come back to this slide and do, numbers 2 and 3 on your own and see if you can get to the point that these 16th notes don't feel so awkward. We're going to keep working on them. We're going to cover a piece later in class today that has a lot of 16th notes, so we'll talk more about it later today. But before we leave 16th notes for now, does anybody have any questions about them? Okay, great. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and go on to the next slide.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and transition into key signatures. Just to, go ahead and unmute yourself or wave at me. How many of you are already familiar with the concept of key signatures?
Yeah.
Yes, no, mixed bag. So, okay, great. Well, I'm going to start us from the beginning, and I want to preface this to say that understanding key signatures will take more time than the 10 minutes I'm going to be talking about them today in class. So take what you like and leave the rest. Whatever sticks, keep it, and if it isn't totally connecting, that's something that will come over time. So I love key signatures because I get to talk about the circle of fifths, which I'm going to get into in just a moment. But key signatures tell us how many sharps or flats are in a piece of music. So here is a very lovely image right here of an example of a key signature. And after I talk a little bit about how to identify key signatures, I'm going to come back to this slide and see who can name this major key. So there are 12 major scales, which means that there are 12 major keys. And next week, we're going to learn full octave scales. And these octave scales, octave just means the series of, 8 keys. I actually talked about this before, but we have a C, and then we go up an octave to a C. Oct is just Italian for 8. So we're going to be learning scales next week that encompasses the 1 octave major scale. And major scales and key signatures, they're best friends. They work together because they serve mutual purposes. So, yes, I can do math, and yes, there are 7 keys that use sharps and 7 keys that use flats. And you might be asking, well, how in the world does that work? I mean, 7 and 7. So I'm going to show you guys right here, right? So here we have the circle of fifths. It's called the circle of fifths because it is oriented around the interval of a fifth. In the first day of class, we talked about what an interval is. An interval is the distance between two notes. And in the circle of fifths, we move up by a fifth and add a sharp. Up by a fifth and add a sharp. Up by a fifth and add a sharp. So for instance, if we want to take a look, I'm going to go ahead and shift to my phone camera. If we want to go ahead and find some different fifths on the piano, let's just make sure that you all can see my screen here. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna wait on that and just use my actual camera here. Okay, so a fifth up from C is G. A fifth up from G is C. And a fifth up from G is A, and so on. And all that means right now is that we are learning key signatures that have different sharps and flats. And as we move up in fifths on the piano with the circle of fifths, we get to add sharps to them. So I'm going to go ahead and put my screen back up here. And we're going to take a look at this again. Okay, so C major has 0 sharps and 0 flats. So anytime you look at a piece of music and there's nothing written in the key signature, it means that it's in the key of C major. Then we look to the next key up a fifth from C, and we have 1 sharp. 1 sharp means that we are in the key of G major. 1 fifth up from G is D, which means we're adding a sharp from the sharp before. And this is just a tactic that you can use to remember your key signatures, and the pattern will become clear as we go through them. So I think what I'm going to do, because honestly, an understanding of the circle of fifths is really important before I dive into what the circle of fifths mean. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to this slide and talk about how to identify key signatures in the first place. All right. So let's talk about key signatures that have sharps. I believe that we've covered this information already. Have we talked about key signatures? Okay, that must have been the masterclass that Ashley and I did. Okay, so I knew I was having a deja vu moment. All right, so key signatures have sharps sometimes and they have flats sometimes. So let's take a look at this example right here. Sharps appear in the order that, sharps appear in the following order in the key signature. We have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. So the name of a sharp major key can be determined by moving up a half step from the last sharp. This is the key signature, for example, for the key of B major. A half step up from A sharp is B. So let's go ahead and take a look at, for instance, if we were to just have the F in the key signature, I don't actually know how to block out the other sharps. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't know. Ashley, do you know how to do that? Or I'll go ahead. Yeah, thank you. So if we have 1 sharp in the key signature, we would look at it and say, I wonder what key this could be in. So we can use this really awesome trick here. By going up a half step from the sharp, we'll be able to find the major key. So what is a half step up from F sharp? Sure enough, it is G, right? So G major has 1 sharp. So that just means that anytime in a piece of music, when we come across an F, we need to know to sharp it. Eventually, knowing your key signatures is going to make your life a lot easier. In the beginning, it might be a little bit confusing because it requires some memorization and getting used to, but in the long run, it's going to make reading music a lot easier. Okay, so Ashley, can you shift the box over 1? And let's take a look at this next key here. So if we had 2 sharps in the key signature, F sharp and C sharp, just given this trick, even if you didn't know anything about key signatures before, can anybody unmute and tell me what the major key would be if there are 2 sharps in the key signature?
Key of D.
If there, did you say G or D as in dog?
D as in David.
D as in David, beautiful, good. And you found that by going up a half step from C sharp, right?
Correct.
Awesome, great, thank you so much. All right, let's keep the ball rolling here. Does anybody have any questions so far about the fact that key signatures tell you how many sharps or flats are in a piece? And does anybody have any questions about the trick I'm using right now to find the major key with sharps? Please unmute, because I definitely don't want to zoom past this if there's any confusion. Zoom, no pun intended.
So question.
What's that?
So like the first example where it says F sharp, does that mean anytime you see a note for F, it should be sharp, like in
Yes.
the entire piece.
The entire piece.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. And so in this instance, if there were 3 sharps in the key signature, and that was presented at the beginning of the piece, every time you saw an F, C, or G, you would need to know to sharp it. Does that
Okay.
make sense, Melissa?
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions?
This is going to sound really basic, but what's the purpose of knowing the major key?
Definitely not basic. The purpose of knowing the major key, the way I like to think about it is major keys, they all have their own personal identity. And there are pieces of music that are all written in all 12 major keys, right? So we, you could, I guess I could basically say it's something really simple like C major and any other key with like sharps keys tends to sound really bright, whereas scales that have flats tend to sound a lot darker and richer. That's more of like why isn't everything just written in the key of C major? Wouldn't that make life a lot easier, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different reasons. One being sharp scales actually sound brighter. They look harsher on the page, so they elicit a different emotion. Whereas flats are softer and warmer looking and oftentimes sounding. Also, not just with the piano, but with other instrumentation, string instruments are written in the sharps keys. For whatever reason, orchestration for stringed instruments, they're always written with sharps, whereas horns like trumpets, saxophone, etc. is often written for flats, almost always. So if we were just restricted to one key, it would make life really tricky because there's so many different palette colors, right, if we know our major scales. So that's why we don't just stick with one major key. And it's important to know all of them because all the major keys are created equal in the world of music, right? So whether we're in G major or A flat major or E major, knowing how many sharps or flats are in each key is going to serve you really well so that you can learn the music easier. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
And I just want to jump in and say one other thing. Historically, if you've heard of any of the old classical composers like Mozart or Bach, a couple of them had actually, written out and taught their students that they believed that different keys elicited different emotions, kind of like what Stephanie was saying. So Mozart thought that the key of A minor was the key of death. And so his piano sonata that he wrote in A minor, he wrote right after his mother passed away. And I think a lot of composers thought that the key of E flat was the key of love. And so a lot of pieces that you hear that are about love are in the key of E flat. If you talk to musicians, a lot of them will say that they have a favorite key or a couple of favorite keys, not because it's the key of love, but I love the key of E flat because it feels really nice under my hands. And certain musicians will say like, oh, I like playing in sharp keys better or flat keys better because something about it just clicks with them a little bit easier. So all of the key signatures are important because they provide us with that, a tonal center. But as Stephanie was mentioning, it takes a while to learn them all. When I was a kid and I was learning piano, it took me years to learn all of the key signatures. So we're going to go over all of them very quickly, and then we'll continue to come back to them because it's something that's relevant for anything that's written, in Western music.
So I'm not sure if this was the original question, but the trick at the bottom of the screen where it says find the sharp major key. Why do we need to find the sharp major key? So if we're looking at a piece of music and we see the F, C, and G are all sharp for this piece, why go a half step up and learn what the major key is?
Well, so it's really just a matter. Sorry, what?
No, you go ahead, Steph.
So you're asking why would we need to find the last sharp? Is that what you said? It's just a trick, right? So there's all kinds of different ways to memorize key signatures. If we go back to this, I don't know how to move that. Hold on.
I'll do it.
If we go back, thank you. If we go back to this example right here, for instance, or, whatever example, if we want to maybe look at E even, you're going to need to take time to memorize, okay, E major has 4 sharps, right? So what this other slide was doing was giving you a shorthand trick to be able to identify the key signature without having to rote memorize it. So they're saying if you are stumped on, if you saw 4 sharps in the key signature and you had no idea what key it was, you could go to the last sharp and go up a half step. So up a half step from D sharp is E, right? And that would give you the major key. Does that make sense, Susie? Yes. Okay.
And I don't know if this, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this is finally clicking with me because, for example, when someone is accompanying a choir and they have to shift, they have to transpose.
Yes.
Something is written and it's too low for the voices and they have to shift. Then they say, okay, it's in the key of C. Oh, we're going to do it in the key of E. And someone who plays needs to know, okay, if I'm having to move everything to the key of E, I need to know which things are sharps and flats.
Yep.
Exactly.
That's a great point because people's voices have different ranges. And so singers a lot of the times will be singing in different keys. And then the one other thing I just wanted to say, and I'm not sure if this helps or if this is related to Susie's question, but the thing I also like to clarify about key signatures is that it's all a pattern. So we're seeing all of these sharps and it's like, okay, in the key of G major, there's 1 sharp. In the key of D major, there's 2 sharps. But really what all of that means is that all of these key signatures have the same pattern of steps. And just like we talked about with our major 5-finger patterns, we can do a little formula where we do whole step, half step, whole step. And that helps us find all of the major 5-finger patterns. There's a formula like that for a major scale that we're going to cover next week. And so these sharps, once we start seeing them on the piano and once we start playing scales, it's going to visually make a little more sense because they're all going to sound the same. So I can play from C to C, and that's my C major scale. I can do the same thing from F to F, or on E flat. And you can see that they each have a similar sound because it's the exact same formula we're using to get there. So these key signatures are following that formula, and that will also become more apparent once we see them on the piano.
Oh, whoops. There's my schedule. That's awesome. Yes. Okay. So does that answer your question, Susie? Is that clarifying? Okay, well, I'm so glad that you guys are throwing your questions out here, and like she was just saying, these are going to make even more sense next week when we actually apply them to the piano. That was we were originally going to teach the scales with the key signatures, but we figured it would be better to kind of introduce key signatures to you and let you kind of ruminate with it a little bit, and then we can apply it to the piano directly. So just saying, if it's not totally clicking yet, don't worry about it. And if it is, then kudos to you. So actually, if you don't mind putting the block next to anywhere really, let's go ahead and have somebody identify with this little trick that we have with sharps. What key do we have here with these 4 sharps? Let's see here. Asta, you want to give it a try? Is it E? E major, good. And just like to, give you a little preview here, that would mean that we would start on E, and then we would play F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, and D sharp all the way up. And sure enough, we get a major scale sound. Ashley, will you move it one more over, please? All right. Let's see here. How about Kathy? What key is this?
It'd be this key of B as a boy.
B as in boy, yes. B as in Bravo. All right, so we have B major with 5 sharps now, right? So that means that B major, it starts on B, right? But we need to apply 5 sharps to it to make it sound like a major scale. All right, can you shift it over one more? And this one is going to be for Melissa Young. So what key is this?
I don't know.
Okay, can we work together to figure it out? All right.
Okay.
All right. So we have E sharp right here, right? So what is a half step up from E sharp? If this is E sharp,
F.
F sharp, right?
Okay.
So that just means that 6 sharps means that we're in F sharp major. And that's really all that is. It's just saying, hey, here's a tool. If we go to the last sharp and go up a half step, that's going to give me my major key. And all that means is that, hey, when I play a scale starting on F sharp major, or I play a piece in F sharp major, I have to have all of these notes sharped. So does the art of finding the key make sense to you, Melissa?
I think I'm pretty lost entirely, actually.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of trying to listen.
Okay, perfect. That's totally fine. And usually you're far from alone with that. So I think what I'll do is I'll just kind of reiterate a couple like foundational understanding points with key signatures, which means that basically key signatures tell you how many sharps or flats are in a piece of music. That's all key signatures are. They just tell you how many sharps or flats are in a piece. And from there, I don't know who's unmuted. Okay, beautiful. So all that means is that there are 12 major keys, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sharps, major scales, and then we have 7 major flat scales. And in music, we are going to come across key signatures that look like this, right? That's a lot of information to remember. But with these little tricks that we have, for instance, if you go to the last sharp and go up a half step, it can help you identify what key you're in. So that is a little trick that you can use for sharps. So I think since we have a little bit of time, why don't we go ahead and try to identify a few more if we go back to the key of the circle of fifths here. Okay, so let's take a look here at D. So the answers are here for you, right? But let's go ahead and go to the half step up from C sharp. What is a half step up from C sharp? D, right? Yeah,
D.
so that means the key of D major has 2 sharps. And the circle of fifths can be helpful because you are adding a sharp as you go up in the circle of fifths. And I think actually, instead of getting too ahead of myself, I'm just going to go ahead and save the circle of fifths for next week when we are doing our tetrascales and learning these key signatures on the piano. But for now, is it mostly at least clear that to identify a major key with sharps, we have to go to the last sharp and go up a half step? Is that component clear? And if it's not, I'm more than happy to try to re-explain it. Is that good? Okay, beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and move to flats.
I'm going to just really quick, one thing I just wanted to add, Stephanie, sorry to interrupt you, but if we go back to the sharps are always in the same order. So that's one thing that is also very helpful. So when you see sharps, they always appear in this order. The order is F, C, G, D, A, E, and B. And so when you see a piece of music that has a key signature, what it's going to be is at the beginning of your piece, right by your time signature. So in that very first measure of the piece, you'll have either some sharps or some flats or something like that written there. And if you have one sharp, you know it's F. You don't even need to look and try to see what line that sharp is on, because one sharp is always just the F sharp. 2 sharps is always F and C. 3 sharps is always F, C, and G, because they're always in this order. So a little device to remember them, a very silly one, is fat cats go down alleys eating birds. And that is one that you can use to remember the sharps. There's a bunch of other ones as well. Father Charles goes down and ends battle. That one works as well. I always like to say extra credit if you can come up with one that's cooler than either of those. But they're always in the same order. And so when you see these key signatures, you don't need to think, oh my gosh, look at all of those sharps. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know how many there are, because you don't even actually have to see the key signature. You can just count how many sharps there are and then repeat your mnemonic device to tell yourself what the names of those sharps are and to find the last one. So I hope that that is helpful as well when we're talking about key signatures. We're going to go into flat key signatures now, and the same thing is true. The flats always appear in the same order. It's backwards from the sharps. So it's B, E, A, D, G, C, F. So battle ends and down goes Charles' father. Or or bead good cornflakes, or just write out the order of sharps and read them backwards, and that will get you to the order of flats. One of my students also made up birds eaten after dinner get cats fat. So just whatever you can do to remember those, they're always in the same order. That makes the next step a little easier as well.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, so just to piggyback off of that, here we have these examples of these key signatures. So you can see in G major, we have F sharp, and then in D major, we have F sharp and C sharp. And then in A major, we have F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. E major, we have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. And we keep adding a sharp to all of the sharps we've learned before. So exactly, when you see something in the key signature, automatically you're going to see one sharp and say, oh, it's G major. Oh, 3 sharps, A major, right? You won't have to think about it even. But in the beginning you will, and that's totally normal. So let's go ahead and take a look at key signatures with flats. So just like there are 7 major keys and scales with sharps, there are 7 major keys and scales with flats. So flats appear in the following order in the key signature: B, E, A, D, G, C, F, like Ashley just said. So we're going to go ahead and use another tool while we're learning our key signatures to identify these flats major keys. Okay, so again, this is kind of a rote memorization thing. With sharps, you go up a half step from the last sharp, and with flats, you need to go to the second to last flat, and that will give you the major key. So for instance, this is the key signature of the key of A flat major, because the next to last flat is A flat. Okay, so let's go ahead and totally go put that box back. Thank you so much. So, okay, if we're using the trick that to find the major key, we go to the second to last flat, what is this major key? Go ahead and just unmute yourself.
B flat.
What did you say? Sorry.
B flat.
Exactly. B flat major. Awesome work. Okay, so you just go to the second, you go to the second to last flat, and boom, 2 flats is B flat major. And if you were to look right here, 2 flats, B flat major. So you'll start to see these and say, oh, B flat major, it has 2 flats. All right, how about what key is, box me. Beautiful. Okay, so how about Melissa Miracle? If we're gonna go to the second to last flat to identify this major key, what would this major key be?
So E flat.
E flat major. Awesome job.
Nice.
So if we go here then, and we see that there are 3 flats in the key signature, then boom, B flat, E flat, and A flat. And you'll see, just like there is a pattern, you are adding sharps, you're adding flats. So we have B flat, B flat, E flat, B flat, E flat, A flat. And slowly we're going to spell the word bead, GCF, golden flakes. I don't know what the saying was. My student always says it spells bead and then gekuf, which is not a word, but it is catchy. Okay, so go ahead and box me again. All right, so Jill, what key is this?
This is A flat major.
A flat major, right? So she went to the second to last flat and said, oh, okay, 4 flats is A flat major. We look right here and boom, we have 4 flats in the key signature right here, and it is in fact A flat major. And notice again, it's always in the same order: B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. Okay, box me 2 more times. All right, Ashley, what is this key?
D flat major.
D flat major, good. So all that means is that this key has 5 flats in it. So that means that when we go to play something in D flat, we have to know, oh, okay, 6 flats. All right. One more box, please. All right, so what is this key? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you can tell me what this major key is. Tracy, you want to give it a try?
G flat?
Yes, exactly. Good job. Nice. So we're in G flat major, which means boom, we have 6 flats. Pretty cool, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and briefly explain the circle of fifths. So it's a tool to memorize your key signatures. So if we are looking at the circle of fifths, it's just like we were doing earlier, another tool to memorize your key signatures. So with key signatures, you're just going to go ahead and start on C and then go up a fifth to G, and you add a sharp, right? And that sharp is G sharp. So G major has 1 sharp. A fifth up from G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is D. We keep the sharp from before and add a sharp that's a half step down from D, which is D major, right? And then that is the key of D major. A perfect fifth up from D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is A. We keep the sharps from before, F sharp and C sharp, and then we add the sharp that's a half step down. We have A major. So this is just another tool to learn your key signatures, which is, it's not how you get there, it's that you get there. But when we learn our scales next week, our full octave major scales, and we let this whole concept of key signatures sink in a little bit more, we'll get back into the circle of fifths and how they can be really helpful for memorizing both your key signatures and your major scales. So just to recap, there are 7 major keys that have sharps. And the easiest way to identify them, if you're in a pinch, is to go a half step up from the last sharp, and that will give you the major key. With flats, you will do the little trick where you go to the second to last flat, and that tells you what major key you're in. So again, the sharps will always be presented in the exact same order every time. F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, B sharp, or Father Charles goes down and ends battle, if you like that catchy saying. And then the order of the flats, which is actually the exact reverse of the sharps, is battle ends and goes down Charles's father, right? Or B, E, A, D, G, C, F, which is the exact reverse of the sharps, which is kind of cool. I don't know who came up with this whole concept of sharps and how they all work together with flats, but I think it's really cool. So anyways, there you go. There's your crash course with key signatures. And in your own words, would somebody be willing to unmute and tell me, how do you find the major key if it has sharps?
You go 1 step up, half step up, half step up.
A half step up from?
The last sharp listed.
Beautiful. Good. Awesome job, Tracy. And then would somebody be willing to unmute and tell me, how do you identify a major key when it has flats?
The second to last flat listed.
Okay. Exactly. Second to last flat. How many keys have sharps?
7.
Good. And while you're at it, how many keys have flats?
7.
Good. And can anybody remember any of the reasons that either Ashley or I gave about why knowing your key signatures is important?
It changes the feeling of the piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Changes the feeling of the piece. Any other ideas?
All signatures have the same pattern of steps and can help with the scales that we do later.
Exactly. Very good. Yes. So it gives us more variety. Maybe you're going to decide that you love E major more than you love C major, or maybe you love the key of love, E flat major. Maybe you go through something hard and you decide A minor really resonates with you. The more you listen to music and the more you get to know key signatures, the more you're going to say, hey, I actually do have a preference. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop there with the key signatures, and then Ashley's going to go ahead and teach us one of our pieces for the week. So I'll go ahead. that up.
And I can share that one. And the other thing I just wanted to say about key signatures too is that we've talked a lot about patterns in music, and key signatures are just another pattern. And so when we look at a piece of music, you know, when you print out or open up a music book and you want to learn how to play a piece of music, ultimately, if you are looking at every single symbol on the page and, you know, trying to define every single individual thing on the page, it would be like trying to read a book without being able to combine any of the letters to make words. And so ultimately, if we can start to recognize the patterns in music, that's when we can open a book or look at a piece of music and understand it more thoroughly and play through it more thoroughly and not feel like we are looking at every single individual thing, because we're able to see the patterns. And key signatures are patterns. And so if you open up a piece and it's in the key of D major, eventually towards the end of this class, we're going to teach you a little bit more about what that means, because in all of the keys, you're going to see certain chords and certain patterns that go along with those keys. And so that will help you recognizing those patterns. All right, we are going to look at a really cool piece. It is called, well, it's from a set, and it's called Little Pieces on Black Keys. And this is number 7 from the set. And it's by a composer named Florence Price. She's an amazing composer, and she lived from the late 1800s until the mid 1900s. And she wrote a bunch of teaching material. So let me get this up on the screen for you really quickly. This piece is not super long, but it is a great exercise for all of the things that we've just been talking about. So looking at this piece, you can see in the beginning, it looks a little scary because we've got this big key signature with all of these flats. So in order to figure out what key we are in, we can use that trick that we just learned. So first of all, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flats. I don't even like to look at the flats because they look terrifying. So I just say, okay, there's 6 flats. B, E, A, D, G, C. Yes, that is all of them. B, E, A, D, G, C. So what is the second to last one? So can someone unmute and tell me what the second to last flat is?
G.
G flat.
Yes, G flat. So that means that we are in the key of G flat major. So that when we play, we have to remember that all of the B's are flat. All of the E's, A's, D's, G's, and C's are flat. And when we're playing in a key signature like this, I just like to remember what is not flat. So really the only thing that is not flat is F in this piece, okay? And I'm gonna give you a big hint that will hopefully ease your mind. If you scan through the notes of this piece, you never have to play an F. So this piece is all gonna be on black keys, as the title suggests. It's a little piece on black keys. So all of the notes that we're gonna play are all flats. Now, the other thing that the key signature tells me is what my tonal center is. So even if you've never heard the term key signature before today, you can feel a key signature, because every single piece of music, or I will say 99.5% of music that is written, that is Western music, has a key signature, and a key signature is a home base or a tonal center. So I know that if I'm playing in this key, this very popular tune, I'm in the key of C major. That means I'm going to end on C, because C is my home base. It's my tonal center. It's my key signature. And so if I played for you something that was in the key of C major and I didn't end on C, I promise, even if you don't think you would be able to, you would be able to tell. So let me show you. I'm going to play in the key of C, and I'm not going to end on C. Did that sound like the end of that song? No, it did not, because we didn't go back to C. And so even if you've never heard the term key signatures, chances are you can feel what it is, because it's what everything that we hear sounds like. So this key is in the piece, I'm sorry, this piece is in the key of G flat, and look at what our last note is. Our last note is a G flat, because that's our home base. It's our tonal center in the key of G flat. Alrighty. So we know we have all these flats. We know we're going to be playing on all the flat keys. So let's write in some finger numbers to help us. So in order to write in finger numbers, we can kind of scan through what notes we're going to play. And I'm going to do this before I even put hands on the piano. But I know that this is a G flat, and then I have an A flat and a B flat. Okay. And then a G flat, an A flat, and a B flat. Same thing. And does my hand ever actually move above this B flat? Do I ever play a note that's higher than B flat in this piece? No. So that means I'd be probably pretty safe if I put my thumb on G flat. So I'll put a little number 1 here, my second finger on A flat, and my third finger on B flat. And then I know that I'm not going to have to move anywhere because those are actually the only 3 notes that I use in my right hand. I can also think about the fact that that is my little 5-finger pattern. That's the first few notes of the G major 5-finger pattern. I'm sorry, the G flat major 5-finger pattern. And so we can start by trying to figure out if, you know, this piece fits into a pattern we already know. Does it fit within my 5 fingers? And yes, it does. So we're just going to use 1, 2, and 3 there, and we'll call it a day. That means every time we come back to this G flat, we're going to play it with our thumb because our hand shouldn't have to move for this piece. Now our left hand, this first note, does somebody want to unmute and tell me what this first note is?
D flat.
Yes, this is a D flat. I'm just going to write that in there because I love to write on my music. And let's look at our left hand. Do we go up or down from this note? How far are we moving? It's your lucky day. Our left hand only plays D flat in this piece. So just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to put my thumb on D flat, because if I put my thumb on D flat in my left hand, that means that both of my hands are in the G flat major 5-finger pattern. And hopefully because you've already practiced the major 5-finger pattern in other keys, that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingering is feeling somewhat comfortable. So I'm going to put my thumb here. And we're just going to keep our thumb there. So we could even write, you know, if we have trouble and we move our fingers around a lot, we could even write a little 1 underneath all of these. Just remember that that's always going to be our thumb. Now, my next thing that I'm going to do before I even jump in and try to play this piece is I'm going to look at the rhythm a little bit, because we've learned a lot of rhythms and there's a lot going on with rhythm. We're in the time signature is 3/4. Our smallest note value is a quarter note. That means that we don't need to count ands, we don't need to count eandas. We can just count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A great way to practice this would be to maybe just look at the right hand, look at all the treble clef things and clap that by itself, and then look at the left hand and clap it all by itself. Just for time right now, we're gonna tap it with both hands. So we're gonna tap the right hand rhythm with the right hand. We're gonna tap the left hand rhythm with the left hand, and we'll do it hands together. So we'll just read through as though we were playing it. So let's do that. I'll count 1 measure, and then we're gonna tap together. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Nice. Now, when you're practicing, you can take significantly more time than that. You can go back, you could do 1 measure of rhythm at a time. You could then add a second measure. You could do that 5 or 10 times until the rhythm felt really comfortable and until you felt like, okay, I've kind of internalized this rhythm and I feel pretty comfortable with this rhythm. Then we can go to add the notes. And again, just for time, we'll go ahead and look at the notes now. So once I'm ready to start practicing notes, I can do 1 hand at a time. I can do right hand by itself, left hand by itself. I love Post-its when I practice. And I actually, what I like to do is like cover up the music and say, then it's not tempting. And I say, I'm only going to practice these 2 measures. And I'm going to see if I can do these 2 measures 3 or 5 times in a row correctly. And I don't care how fast it is. And I don't care if it sounds really good. And I don't even care if it sounds like the song, if I know the song. But what I want to know is, am I playing the correct notes? And am I counting the rhythm? And is the rhythm correct? Okay, and if I can do that 3 or 5 times correctly, that means I'm ready to maybe add another measure or work on another section. So for now, we're gonna go ahead and not do that, even though that's the best way to practice, just for time. And we're gonna play through it really slowly. So if you're at your piano, you can play with me. Feel free to just play the right hand or just play the left hand, or go ahead and tap along if you don't feel ready to jump in and play this hands together right now. Also, we can't hear you. So if you do jump in and play it hands together, you know, you're going to hear what it sounds like and you'll get a chance to play it and nobody will know. No one will be the wiser. All right, we're going to go nice and slow because that's a really wonderful gift to give ourselves when we are learning. Okay, so I'm going to put my hands in my, make sure my fingers are on the right keys. So in my right hand, I'm in my G flat 5-finger position. So thumb on G flat, second finger on A flat, third finger on B flat, fourth finger on C flat, fifth finger on D flat. And in my left hand, my thumb goes on D flat, and that's all I'm gonna need. All right, 1, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right. So it's a sweet piece, and this is a great piece to get you into playing in a complicated key signature without having there be too many notes, too many complicated rhythms. So I urge you to practice this one, even if you're really terrified of the fact that there are so many flats. Just make yourself practice it because you will learn something. Now, once you've practiced, you might get it to the point that it's a little bit faster, and that's great. And also, if it always stays this slow and you need to play it this slow in order to be able to, you know, or even slower, think about what's on the page and work with everything that's on the page, that is totally fine. Does anybody have questions about this piece? No? Okay. So we're going to do something kind of fun. We're going to do a little bit of sharing. We asked you all to bring your favorite songs, or maybe, you know, list one of your favorite songs or a few of your favorite songs. We're going to do a little bit of sharing and some chatting, and then we're going to learn one more fun song today. We're going to do an Elton John piece. And that's all we've got for the rest of class today. So take some deep breaths, wash key signatures of your brain. We will come back to them. We will keep coming back to them. They're a lot. They take a lot of time to process and to learn all of them. And let's go ahead and do a little bit of sharing.
Would you mind, Ashley, if we took a quick break just to stand up and move just a little bit? Is that
Absolutely.
Okay.
I would be so okay with that.
Okay.
Everybody else, does that sound good to you?
All right, let's just go ahead and stand up. I'm gonna show you guys a couple stretches right here. If I can figure out how to unshare my screen here. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's just go ahead and do some big balls of energy. After we do some shoulder rolls, just go ahead and get the upper arm structure moving. All right, and go ahead and do a big ball of energy in. So you're gonna go scoop energy in and then blow it out. Whoo. And go ahead and do that a couple more times. There's no right way to do it. Just scoop the energy in and then exhale it out. And inhale it in and exhale it out. All right, so go ahead and now touch your toes and go ahead and do a little bit of a ragdoll. Everybody knows what that is. Just let your head hang heavy here. So every time you practice, I would recommend that every 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the most, that you get up and do a little movement, do a little bit of stretching, because your brain needs oxygen, and it actually takes like 10 minutes to 12 minutes max for an adult to lose focus. For people like me, it's even less than that. So I just kind of want to encourage you all, whether you're watching this video or you're practicing at home, just to make it a priority to get around and move and breathe and feel your body. All right, so let's go ahead and segue into some of your favorite music here. So what do we got? Did anybody take a moment this week to think about the kind of music they like to listen to, and would anybody be willing to share what it is?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
I wasn't here last week, so when you say pick a favorite song, is there any like do I pick a certain genre, or like what is that? Anything?
Anything that speaks to you.
Yeah, I think Ashley and I just wanted to hear from you guys about, obviously you love music because you're in this class, and we wanted to get to know you a little bit better. And it's not like a prepared thing. I just we thought it would be a really cool open forum conversation to just share with each other what kind of music we find inspiring. And so it could be country, it could be jazz.
Sometimes you need to get away from the kids for grown-up time.
It could be YouTube commercials. I'm not here to judge.
I was just clicking on that video that Asta just sent in the chat. I was trying to see what was coming up. Oh, Alicia Keys and Brandy Carlisle. Oh, wow. I love Brandy Carlisle and Alicia Keys. A beautiful noise, but I have not heard that. Should we play a few seconds of it? Let's do it.
And if anybody wants to share why it speaks to them, we'd love to hear that too.
Okay, wait, sorry, I have to make sure I share my noise or sound, I mean. Okay, I shouldn't be in charge of sharing videos because I'll just watch all of them in their entirety. That's beautiful. I'm gonna have to listen to the rest of that later.
Gorgeous, yeah.
Is that a newer song, Asta? Or newer to you?
Oh, well, it's new to me. I heard it, we were doing a diversity, equity, and inclusion training, and the trainer opened with this song. And it was kind of at a time when I don't know if everyone's in Portland here, but Portland was having a lot of political unrest and a lot of protests, and things just felt really overwhelming with COVID. And yeah, that's why I like this piece.
Really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share?
I think I saw it in the chat. Yesenia shared it.
Oh, great. Let's pull up another one. See if I can. Ads. Ugh. Oh, Yesenia, this is a good one too. This is one of my all-time favorites. Okay, let's share. I love the piano part in this. So simple but beautiful. I love that one. When that CD came out, I won't tell you what age I was, but you'll probably guess based on my story. I put on the CD, I got that CD, I put it on, and I just remember listening to that one song on repeat, like for days and days and days. Anyone else?
I put on there The Entertainer.
That's a good one. Is that The Entertainer you're referring to? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had it as a recital piece when I was a kid. I can I still have part of it ingrained, but it's like I miss it that I don't have all of it.
Nice. Well, you'll have to bring it to class. Maybe that's your last performance. Okay, let's see. Jill sent something.
Your skincare.
Okay.
So during the pandemic, I've gotten really interested in the Platt family, Ben Platt, who has won some Grammy stuff, but the three brothers, they sing together, and they're a Jewish family, and they're singing beautiful Jewish liturgical music, I think for Jewish kids. Anyway, I find their harmonies amazing.
Cool. Okay, let's listen.
Okay.
Older brother starred in Wicked.
Oh my gosh, that is really beautiful. That's really beautiful.
Yeah. That's how I veg out at night.
Yes.
YouTube, and I listen to, like everybody else.
Very calming. Okay, let's see. Ashley sent something. This is fun. This is like music roulette. Okay, here we go. Oh, this is a good one too. just to let you all know, the premise is that they show up to the wedding and they surprise the couple, and it's very cool. Yes, these are great. Okay, let's do one more. We've got one from Kathy. I have to say, you all have wonderful taste. Yes.
Funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak?
That's a good one.
That is beautiful. I love that jazz standard. I had a professor in college who he always referenced that song for whatever reason. I don't know. The lyrics are a little bit sad, but anyway, do we have time for Melissa's?
Sure. Oh, sorry, I didn't see Melissa's in there. Missed one. Okay. Let me share the screen. Ah! Sarah Bareilles is the musician for me, where when I'm alone singing in the car, I pretend that I'm her. Right? She's that person for me. This was so wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. We're going to do this again next week. So if you want to bring another one, or if those that didn't get a chance to share today want to bring some next week, does anybody want to say anything about their choices, or share anything, about why they chose what they chose?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Now that there's probably less piano stores than there used to be, where's a good spot? How do you buy sheet music? Is it possible to still buy the tangible sheet music, or is it going to have to be digital?
So one of my favorite places is Portland Music Company in Beaverton, and they have a really large selection. They have a whole basement that is devoted to piano music, and they're pretty good about carrying a lot of range. And they're also really good about, if you call ahead and ask if they have something, they can usually order it for you if they don't. So that's my favorite local spot. I don't know, Stephanie, do you have any other local spots? Oh, Portland Music Company. Is it Portland Music Company? That's the one in...
I think that's what you just said. I just put it in the chat.
Perfect.
Town Music is also pretty fun too. They have kind of just like some piano and ukulele music. It's kind of more like uke guitar based, but it's local, and they have various different music, and it's just fun to shop around there too. So I'm spacing on how many local shops there actually are, but it's always fun to go in. So we can compile a list of different local music shops and send them your way for sure.
If you are looking for digital, there is sheetmusicplus.com, and they have a huge range of anything you could ever want. And the great thing about, they'll have popular stuff, and you can pick the key that you want it in. So if you're purchasing it, you can say, I want it in the key of C major with no sharps or no flats. And you can just click it and then instantly download it. But I would say they're really good for stuff like that. If you want a book and you want to be able to look through the book and see what level the music is, I like going into the music stores, because, it's nice to be able to actually thumb through something and see what you're buying.
And just to reiterate, we said this at the beginning of the class, but if there are songs that you really want to learn, especially after hearing the songs that you guys just shared, I'm inspired to re-listen to Sarah Bareilles and re-listen to jazz and re-listen to Maroon 5. There's just so much beautiful music out there, and we encourage you to pick stuff out and bring it to class. Bring your questions. This is a collaborative experience, and even though we're going to be working on pieces that we choose that we will find obviously educational, we want this to really serve what inspires you. So another fun thing to do if you're not wanting to spend money right off the bat and you want to experiment, just go to your search engine and type in Chords to Sugar by Maroon 5. And they'll have the chord symbols like we've talked about above the lyrics, and it might be a fun experiment for you to just take those chord symbols and then try to play them on the piano based off of just using your ear. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can engage with the music that you love. But between visiting your local music shops, searching online, and having fun, you can't go wrong. So
yeah. And we have one more performance in our last class. So if anybody wants to start working on anything for that could be a fun idea. We're going to go over one last piece kind of quickly. And here I can share it on the PDF, so it might be a little easier to see.
Ashley, do you mind if we I just want to review 16th notes really quickly, because just really, really briefly on the slide that you went over, just since this song covers 16th notes, and then I will put that up. So just to reiterate, so this song has 16th notes, and I want to remind you all that when a 16th note gets a quarter of a beat, it gets a quarter of a beat, so 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So when you go to learn your song by Elton John, which we're going to show you in just a moment, we encourage you to use your understanding of 16th notes. So can we just go over the rhythm number 1 together? So go ahead and just like with your feet, you can stand up or just walk the beat with your feet, but I really want you to feel the big beat internally, right? Because feeling the big beat 1 and 2 is really important. So I'm going to go ahead and count a measure for nothing, and then we're going to clap and subdivide. Count out loud, right? The rhythm that we see. Ready? 1E and a 2E and a ready, here we go. 1E and a 2E and a 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 1E and a 2. All right, can we try it one more time? And then I'm just going to kind of point the cursor here, and I'm going to play it on a note. Ready? Here we go. 1E and a 2E and a 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 1E and a 2 and a 1E and a 2E and a. Awesome. So you can really you want to feel that big beat, and then use the subdivisions depending on whatever the smallest note value is to break down the trickier rhythms. Okay, do you mind sharing your screen, Ashley? So your song by Elton John, I'm sure that you are all familiar with this song. And I'm going to go ahead and explain the approach to learning this piece, and then I'm going to have Ashley play just the beginning of the song so you guys can hear it a little bit. So remember, this is a lead sheet, and a lead sheet is the term we use for music that has a melody written out and chord symbols. The song that Ashley showed you, that is a piece that has all the music written out for you. So everything you're supposed to play is written out. But with lead sheets, you have to use what I'll say context clues to figure out how to interpret the score or the piece. So this symbol right here is telling us to play a chord. Will someone unmute and tell me what chord I should play in my left hand?
I don't think they could see because I'm sharing the screen, but were you pointing to the first chord?
Oh,
I will point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can somebody tell me what that chord symbol is?
C.
C major, right? C
Right,
major.
C major.
Good. What about the next one? Will you point to that one now, Ashley?
That's an F chord.
It's an F chord, yes. And how about the next one?
The G chord.
G major. Good. And how about one more?
And an E minor.
E minor. Good. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight my phone here, and I'm going to go ahead and play the chords in my left hand. Let's see. Where did I go here? Okay. Give me just a second.
I'll spotlight you. I've got you.
Okay. Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right. So, oh my gosh. All right. So we've got our left hand. It's oriented here. Okay. So here we have our C major chord, right? So go ahead and do this with me. We're going to play our C major chord in the left hand, C major chord, and then I'll have her put it back on the screen. You can follow along with my hand here. So everybody play C major in the left hand, C, E, G. Now let's go ahead and play the F chord. That's the next chord in the song. Good. And then I don't remember the next one because I'm going to have her put it up, but what about the E minor? E minor is right here. Awesome. So can you go ahead and put up the song on the screen here? So
Yes, I think the other one was a G chord.
Okay, awesome. Well, sorry about that, guys.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead and follow along with me once I have the music in front of me.
And I just typed the notes in the chat also in case you need to look at the notes for the chords.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so here we have C major. So we're gonna hold the C major chord for 2 beats, and then we're gonna hold the F major chord for 2 beats. Notice that they didn't tell you exactly how long to hold the chords, but they're going over the first 2 beats of this song, and then it's going over the next 2 beats of this song right here. And then this next chord is G major, and then we're gonna hold that. And then we have E minor for 2 beats. So notice that it tells you when to change the chord above the melody note and the lyric that you're supposed to change it on. So after you've gotten used to the chords a little bit, so you're gonna hold it like, so you have the chords in the left hand, and up above you have the melody line. So notice that, again, like I said, you're gonna hold the chords for however many beats the melody. Oh yeah, you have the cursor. So you're gonna hold the chord for however many beats it's being held while you have the melody note right here. And then the right hand is freed up to play the melody. So these are 16th notes and 8th notes, and we have even a tie there, which is something that we haven't necessarily covered. But we're gonna learn this song mostly using our ear. Is anybody unfamiliar with Your Song by Elton John? Okay. Well, it's a popular one, and I'm going to have Ashley play it for us in just a second, but I'm going to go ahead and just show you the process here. So with lead sheets, it's a little bit different than learning classical songs in the traditional sense. You learn the chords, and you use your ear, and you realize that, oh, okay, I'm going to get to know the chords. And like we were talking about with the piece before, just do small sections, right? Feel that chord in your hand, E minor, and then try to sing the words or hum along. And do that a couple more times just so you can really hear the melody line following along, right? So can you guys hum along with me even though I can't hear you? Right? And you can practice just playing that left hand and really hearing that melody while you sing along, right? And then you're going to use what you have written up above here as your guide to figure out, oh, what note do I start with? How am I supposed to play this, right? So you could go 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3, right? You could go through and clap that rhythm. That's great. That's why they wrote it out for you. But,
probably not what Elton John is doing.
Yeah, exactly. And having a good time, right? So the helpful clue is that you start with, what note do we start on in the right hand in this song?
E.
E, right? Yep. And I'm playing a little bit high right now. But also the nice thing about lead sheets is the rules don't really apply as much. You can play it wherever you want because, again, this is a roadmap, but it's not as specific as classical songs, right? So if you decide you want to play right here, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say the purpose of a lead sheet is to, like, if we all had this lead sheet and we all had a piano in the same room, as long as we all stayed on rhythm and we played the same chords, it would sound like we all knew what we were doing and we were a band. Because if we keep the rhythm the same and the chords the same, everybody has the freedom to kind of realize them how they want to, and it's still going to sound good because we have the same rhythmic patterns and harmonic or chord patterns. And so it keeps everybody together, but you have freedom to do what you want, basically.
Exactly.
Within those parameters.
Exactly. So if it keeps it simpler for you to go ahead and, as you're learning notes and reading notes, if you want to just go ahead and play the E above middle C as it's written, and then play your C chord down below it, that's perfectly fine. I'm just saying you can probably hear how he plays a lot more. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can interpret these chord symbols, but for right now, we're going to keep it nice and simple. So you're going to keep your left hand and just play those root position block chords, right? C major, and then you're going to play the melody note. Right? So what I would do, and like what we did with the last piece, write in your finger numbers. So go ahead and can you point to the first note? So write in finger number 3. I'll just go ahead and tip you off that that's going to be the easiest finger number to probably start with here, because you have notes that you're going to approach below E and notes that you're going to approach later on that's above E in the next measure. So again, having finger numbers that you write out in lead sheets will be helpful because it'll give you guideposts, but I would recommend, rather than trying to be super, super, super accurate with the rhythm, listen to the song a bunch and hear how Elton John sings it, and use this lead sheet as a map, as a clue box, so you can figure out, okay, how do I want to play this, right? So you're going to go through, and I'm just going to kind of name the chords as I play along, and I'm just going to kind of interpret the melody as I hear it in my head, because it's a lead sheet and I can do that. So Ashley, can you just kind of scroll down as I go along here? So I'm going to go from the top, and I encourage you guys, if you feel comfortable, to either A, play the chords with me in the left hand, B, sing the melody along, or C, try to, clap the rhythm, or any of the above. All right, here we go. Ready? All right. Notice I held A minor. Ooh, a flat. E major. And then whatever the next one is, I don't know. Right? And this is a great place to end, right? For this.
For today.
But yeah, let's go ahead and end there. And does anybody have any questions about what we covered with that, or?
I have a question.
Yes.
In that piece, because I actually just took a stab at it earlier today, and I found myself playing what looked like an extra note. Like there's on the first line, I think it's the second measure, there's a little swoopy, I don't know what to call it.
Yes.
No, before that. So it's the
This
E.
one?
Yeah, after funny.
Yeah.
And then there's another note there, but we don't play that, do we?
Yes. So this is a tie. Whenever we have this little line that connects 2 notes that are the same, so like in this case 2 E's, or in this case 2 D's, it's very small there. It's a tie, and it means that you play the first note and then you hold for the value of the second note, but you don't play the second note. So this rhythm is bump, da 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 dun dun dun, hold for 4th beat, dun. And that's how we do that.
Okay, because I was playing that extra note and I was like, it sounded wrong, and I didn't know.
Yeah. So I like to actually, after a tie, I like to actually just put a little X and visually cross them out, because I am notorious for forgetting them.
Okay, I'm
so
gonna do that.
Yeah, put a little X there just to remind yourself. And then the other thing I want to tell you too is, like, these are 8th rests. There are rests that get a half of a beat. There are a couple of other symbols in here that we haven't learned yet. We haven't talked about this rhythm. This is a triplet down here. But if you're super into this song, 1, we can spend a little more time going over it next week, or we can answer questions about it. But 2, use this as an opportunity to listen and see if you can hear what's happening in the music, and use and copy. Basically, just see if you can copy, even if you don't know what the symbols, all of the symbols are. We're going to try, I like to tell my students sometimes, we're like engaging a little bit of a different part of our brain, because we've been working so hard on what do all of the symbols and terms mean, and what, how do we play them? How do we place them? What are all of them? And now we're kind of giving you a little more freedom and asking you to learn these chords, see what melody notes you're playing, and then see if you can get the melody to sound like you're singing it, or like it sounds when you hear the song, without necessarily counting every single note. Because if you look this up on YouTube, you'll find 50 different versions, and I guarantee you in every single different one, Elton John is singing it a little bit differently. So the rhythm is not, he didn't write it out on paper like this when he wrote the song. The rhythm is a little bit more loose, and so we can have a little more freedom to interpret it. So that's my little caveat, I guess, is go forth. I know there's stuff in the song we don't know yet. Come back with questions, and obviously we will answer those questions and go over it more, but then also see if you can listen a little bit and get it to sound like the song, even if you don't know every single symbol.
Yeah, and we'll totally go over it next time. And on the slides we have the assignment for next week. So we're all finished up for today, but go ahead and just do the below right here. Familiarize yourself with the circle of fifth and key signatures. Work on Little Pieces by Florence Price and get started with Elton John, and see if you can review those 16th note rhythms and be able to clap all the rhythms on slide 3. Disregard the top item. We will cover that next week. Okie dokie.
Any
All
questions?
right, great class, everybody. Well, thank you. You guys were all
awesome. Nicely done. So come with some more listening examples next week, and we look forward to it.
All right.
Beautiful.
Bye, everybody. Have a great night.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.